People always say, what's your favorite country to speak in? I say, by far, India. Because Indians love to learn. So I met with this organization, it's called Kranti, and they take children of sex workers in the slums of Mumbai. I asked them, what can I learn about creativity from you guys? And then they came up with a made-up word, and the made-up word was sufferender. What does sufferender mean? It means that you shouldn't surrender your creativity to the suffering or the world that you're in. In Thailand, they have this concept called sabai sabai, which means don't worry, be happy. Or like if you're in a bar in Thailand and you order a beer and it hasn't come in 20 minutes, you go like, where the hell is my beer? And they will say, sabai sabai, don't worry about it. The beer will come when the beer will come, and just enjoy life while you're waiting.
So let's begin with what brought you to India in the first place.
I'm interested in humanity. And if you are interested in humanity, you automatically become extremely fascinated by India. And that is why, like, I go to 15 to 35 countries per year. But I make sure I've been to India an unproportionately large amount of times, because India is the only country that has all of humanity inside of it. You have all the religions, you have so many the different languages, different cultures, also the richest and the poorest, like all aspects of what it means to be human can be found in India. And in India, you have modernism and you have traditionalism, you have all these things. The thing is, Indians don't understand this. They think it's normal. It's not normal. Most people have to practice for decades until they get this understanding of what it means to be human. But it also means that you automatically accept the fact that there are many different ways of doing things, which is a huge advantage for being. I mean, I study creativity. It's a huge advantage when you want to be creative.
So you said you studied creativity. What is it exactly that you do with creativity? I know you've traveled 75 countries. You interview people all over trying to understand how their creativity differs. But talk to me a little bit about why you do that, and what did you see different in India than the other countries?
Yes, so I am the creativity explorer. What does that mean? It means for the last 25 years, I travel around the world and I interview creative people. I want to understand what creativity is, and I want to understand that by interviewing creative people from all walks of life and all kinds of cultures and all kinds of countries, which means I interview artists, entrepreneurs, business leaders. I remember one thing I did, it was one day in Mumbai. I interviewed a woman who was very high up in the Indian space program, and the CEOs of some of the Tata companies, and the children of the slums of Mumbai, all on the same day, all about the same topic, creativity. There's 3 totally different kinds of people, but also 3 totally different kinds of lives. And I want to understand and learn from all of them. This is, of course, you can do this in many countries, but not as an extreme as you get to do in India.
What was different in these 3 interviews for you in terms of creativity?
Well, the scientists, the Indian space program, I was amazed by their focus on the goal. Like, this was the Mars probe that they were working on. Like, the idea of getting to the goal not with small resources, but with limited resources, and still being able. I think if I remember it correctly, they said that the budget that they had was smaller than a Hollywood movie that was made about the same program. It's not that they don't have money, it's that they focus so much on what can we do with the money that we have. It's a very efficient, very focused, and very positive. I remember her as a very positive person. The business leaders, what I remember, I mean, I interviewed a bunch of them. The one thing I do remember was before the pandemic, and one of the business leaders came up and told them about, okay, we need to focus on sustainability. And the reason we have to do that is because our children will never forgive us. And then he mentioned Greta Thunberg, which is from Sweden, and said that they listen to what she's saying and they will not forgive us unless we change the way we do business. But the ones I remember are the girls from the slums of Mumbai, because they changed my approach to life, to be honest, and also my approach to creativity. So if you ask me who taught me the most, it would be them. They had an amazing approach to life.
And what was that?
Yes, so I met with this organization. It's called Kranti, and they take children of sex workers in the slums of Mumbai, which is, on the human ladder of where people look down on other people. They are probably at the bottom. I asked them, what is your, like, what can I learn about creativity from you guys? And then they came up with a made up word, and the made up word was sufferender, which sounds a bit awkward if you're a native English speaker. What does sufferender mean? It means that you shouldn't surrender your creativity to the suffering or the world that you're in. So they gave me an example. They said, some nights when our mothers are working, we cannot stay at home. So we have to go out and we have to be out all night. But it's dangerous to be out all night, so we cannot sleep. So to stay awake, we lit a fire and then we sit around the fire and we stay up all night. But when we do that, we sing. And the point here is that they sang. So we are where we are. We can't change the facts. We can't send this around, but we can change our approach to that. And I said, that's a good approach to life. But tell me, what does that mean for me? Like, how can I teach this to the people in the West? And they said, because they had been studying the West, Kranti uses iPads where they show TED Talks to these girls. So they learn English and they learn from the best teachers in the world. And then they discuss the TED Talk afterwards. It's a beautiful thing. So they have been watching this and they said, you guys, you have someone who wants to be an actor on Broadway, but right now hasn't made it yet. So now she's a waiter and she's miserable. What you should say is, I can't change the fact I'm a waiter right now, but you should say, I want to be a Broadway actor and I'm going to make everything I can to make that happen. But until I am a waiter, and I'm going to be the best waiter there is, because when I make more tips, which means I can make more money, which means I can pay for more classes, so I can become a Broadway actor. Don't surrender to the negative parts of your world, because it's just going to pull you down. Because this is a good story, I want to tell you one more. They told me that they have had a sponsor, gave them tickets to fly to France and do that Via Camilla, that walk that you do for weeks, like a pilgrimage. The sponsor paid for their trip, but they didn't give them any more money. So when they landed, Robin, the woman who runs this, she said, okay, we're doing the walk now, but we don't have enough money. We only have 300 euro for the whole group. We're not going to make it all the way, but we will walk as far as we can. And the girls look at her and say, what do you mean we're not going to make it? And then when they started walking, we are going to walk as long as we can and we are going to enjoy the walk. That's what we're going to do. We're not going to focus on the fact that we don't have money to make it. And then every time they met another pilgrim on that road, they would say, hi, we are from the slums of Mumbai. We are doing this pilgrimage to get a better understanding of what the world could look like. We don't have enough money. We're not going to make it. And what happened? People gave them money and more money and more money. And they made the whole pilgrimage. They made it all the way. And that is a wonderful approach to life.
So, what was the purpose of going to France and doing the walk?
Were
they trying to make?
Now, the sponsor one person said, I want them to do the pilgrimage. I will pay for their flights. And they said, okay, you're not going to turn that down, right? But they didn't have enough. So they said, well, we just want to get the girls out there, get them on a plane, do the pilgrimage. If we can't do the whole thing, it doesn't matter. Like, at least they get to do some of it. They get to see what they get to fly on a plane. They get to do the walk, but we won't make it all the way. But the girls said, no, that's not the approach we're going to have to this. We are going to enjoy the walk as long as we can, and we're going to see if we can make it as far we can make it. Most people would say what you just said. Oh, but if they don't have enough money to make the whole walk, why would they go? That's the wrong approach.
Wow. So what was the creative part? Do you think it was that these children were just sitting around the fire singing and just trying to find the goodness even in that situation? Do you think they were creative in the way they handled life?
It reminds me of another story, which is not about India, but it's the same thing. It's a hostage negotiator I interviewed in Scotland. Her job is to get hostages out from hostage negotiators. And she said that when you do a hostage negotiation, the other side don't want to talk to you. They don't want to give you any information. And she said, you have to get all the negative thoughts out of your head and only focus on the negative, because they're only going to give you one clue. Like, for example, you might hear a train in the background and you go, that's it. They are located close to a train track. And that doesn't mean you should paint a rosy picture. It means you need to have a very positive mindset if you want to be creative. And that's the lesson from the girls in the slum, that they are able to reframe their mind to say, let's focus, not just have a positive mindset, but let's reframe our brains, rewire our brains to look at the situation from a positive point of view. And then you see the opportunities.
Wow. I see a lot of that in India. I think people try to make the most of the situation by being positive and really working hard, something I've not seen the rest of the world.
And it's also that you realize what happens if you don't work hard. It doesn't mean if you work hard you will make it. That's not what the lesson is. The lesson is if you need to put in your best effort. And I'm amazed with that. I've spoken in 75 countries. People always say, what's your favorite country to speak in? I say, by far, India. And I said, because Indians love to learn. And this is not just like a cliche. This is true. That Indian saying, if you drop a book on the floor, you pick it up and kiss it a lot. I did a speech once in India. I got the program and it said 45-minute speech, 1 hour Q&A. And I said to the organizer, no, this is a mistake. It's 10 minutes, right? 10 minutes Q&A at the end. Normally it's 45-minute speech, 5 minutes Q&A. And they said, no, it's 1 hour Q&A. I said, no, well, what are we going to do when they're done with the questions? What's the plan here? Are you just going to finish early? And they said, don't worry, this is India. They will have questions. And I did my 45-minute speech, and then I did a 1 hour Q&A. And after 1 hour, they were still asking questions. That only happens in India.
Do you think the questions were thoughtful?
Yes, of course. If there are two different ways of learning, like asking questions. One is to try to show off, and then you just ask. The other way, if you want to learn, questions is the person who asked the question is the one who wants to learn more. Say, hey, I didn't understand that. What do you think about this? I once did a speech in North Korea, and I would argue that the only country that asked more yearning questions were in North Korea, because suddenly they had someone they could ask which came from the outside world. They were like someone from a different planet had arrived, and they just wanted to know, what does the world look like outside? But that's a different reason why they're asking those questions, because they're not allowed to leave, and they don't have internet. It's all the negative reasons why they were so hungry for knowledge. India has all the information, all the knowledge. They just want to learn more.
Yeah. You're working on a book which is to be released in November of this year. Am I correct?
December. It's called The World of Creativity.
Creativity. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So
yeah, have you captured your experiences from different countries about creativity? Can you give me an example of how people have been different in the ways they think in few of these countries, your top three, and what does your book talk about?
Yes, so it's 37 chapters and 37 countries. So it's not like how did the people in this country think about creativity. It's what did I learn about creativity going to these 37 countries. My favorites, I would say, well, the Indian one isn't a favorite, but I can use the Bhutan example because I think it's closely connected to similar culture. I interviewed the former head of tourism in Bhutan, and he said that in the West, you think creativity is about expression, but creativity is inward journey. It's about self-discovery. It's about understanding yourself. And when he talked about that, I really changed the way I look at creativity. Like when I'm writing something or creating something, it shouldn't be about me expressing or showing off or showing the world something. It should be, I should learn something about myself from doing this. And if I didn't approach this creative project correctly, which I think is a very good approach. And I really like that approach to life. It's about learning, and it goes back to the learning, right? What did I learn?
I think when you really go inward, the best comes out. When you go inward and really ask yourself those questions, and the best of you comes out usually in terms of creativity.
Not only in terms of creativity, but also in terms of like who you are. And the deeper you go, the more you understand who that person is. Not only the more profound is your creativity, but also the more profound you are as a human. Definitely.
So, Fredrik, about your book, it's The World of Creativity. What is it exactly about? What are you talking about in that book?
It's not an exercise book in creativity, but it's a book to understand the creative process better by looking at how different people from different professions, different cultures, and different countries look at their own creative process. And sometimes the chapters are contradicting each other even, because sometimes creativity does that. For simple example, some people like to be by themselves and meditate. Some people need to be in groups to brainstorm. Which one is correct? Well, they are both correct. But the trick here is that it's kind of like, you remember Anthony Bourdain? He traveled around the world to understand humanity through food. And if you do it long enough, you realize that food is just very different, but you can learn something from someone. And so the overall lesson of the book is to be more curious about other people and how they approach creativity, so that you can discover your own creative process. It is about exploring your own creativity, basically.
And you've covered 30 countries in that, you said?
The book is, I've been to 75 countries, but the chapter, this book has 37 countries in it. One lesson per country. So I'll give you an example. Thailand, for example, is in the book. And I love the Thai example because I was interviewing an origami artist, and we were talking about the creative block, like what happens when you, like in the West, you know this, we have like writer's block, like you get stuck, you can't create something.
Yeah.
And she never suffered from that. She didn't have it. She had no creative anxiety at all. And I like, where does this come from? And she said there's in Thailand, they have this concept called sabai sabai, which means don't worry, be happy. Or like if you're in a bar in Thailand and you order a beer and it hasn't come in 20 minutes, you go like, where the hell is my beer? And they will say sabai sabai, don't worry about it. The beer will come when the beer will come, and just enjoy life while you're waiting. That's kind of the approach. That's why Thais are so happy. It's built on the sabai sabai concept. So when she has a creative block, like she's sitting there with her origami paper thingies, and then she gets stuck, she just goes up and she goes to Starbucks. And I say, okay, so are you thinking about the problem, how to solve it? And she goes, no, I'm not. I'm just drinking my coffee. Okay. Then what do you do? Oh, then I drink. Then I watch people. And basically, she calls it an idea nap. She calls it an idea nap, like a power nap. So when you get stuck, you just take an idea nap. You just go do something else for a while. You can still have the block, but there's no anxiety connected to it. So creativity doesn't have to have anxiety. And when I realized that, now I'm a big follower of that approach. I don't have creative anxiety anymore. I still have blocks. I just don't think, okay, let's have an idea nap and then let's go back to it later.
Wow. No, I personally am going to start using that sabai
There you
sabai.
go.
It's
Sabai,
so
sabai.
refreshing.
Yes.
That's lovely. So we spoke about Thai, we spoke about Bhutan, we spoke about India. Let's talk a little bit about the West. How do you
Mm.
think that differs from this side of the world, the East?
Well, when we say the West, we usually think America. And America is not in my book, because American creativity is reach for the stars, shoot for the moon, moonshot ideas. Elon Musk is not an American, but he left South Africa and he moved to America because he has that mindset. And it's a great mindset. America is a wonderfully creative country, but everyone knows about that. But there's so many different approaches. For example, in the famous Mark Zuckerberg quote, "Go fast and break things." That's Facebook. Like,
Yeah.
great idea, but that's just one approach. You could do the total opposite. And in my book, I have the total opposite instead. I have an example from Afghanistan. Patient about profound patience by taking months to create something, because see, there's no right and wrong. There's just difference. And when we say the West, it's not just one West. There's many Wests. Like Swiss creativity is very different from American creativity. It's not about going fast and breaking things. It's about perfection. Swiss watches. I interviewed a Swiss watchmaker, and he's one of the best in the world. He's worked for all the big ones. And he said, my definition of creativity is something better than perfect. And that is such a Swiss way to say, we have the perfect way of doing it, but there's an even better way to doing it. And my job is to find it. Something better than perfect is very different from a move fast and break things.
Yeah, that would never work in America. I mean, it's always like, what's the quote? Don't let the perfect come.
Yeah, exactly. The perfect is the enemy of great, or something like that, right?
Yes.
But
It would never
they
work.
are both true. That's the point. And the more you read these different approaches to creativity, the more you realize that there's no one truth. And this is what I love about India. There's not one truth. You cannot be creative if you think there is one truth to something. But in India, is there one God or many gods? Is there this? Is there that? Like, yeah, okay, we believe different things. And so I married a Filipina. And the best thing of marrying a person from a different culture is that you realize that the way you do things is not
The only way,
the only way. So for
or the
example, like
right way.
the right way. And when you realize that, you get such an immense freedom. Because,
Perspective.
and this is what I mean about India, which is very few countries have that, where what you stand for is that diversity. And so you take it for granted. The problem is you don't understand how privileged you are to have this understanding of there's no one way of doing it. So when I married my woman, my wife, and we're going to have children, how are we going to raise the children? The Swedish way or the Filipino way, which is very, very different. For example, in Sweden, we don't hit children. I was never once hit by my parents, and neither were any of my friends. In the Philippines, they hit the children like crazy. I mean, torture almost. Now we're going to have children. Are we going to hit them or not hit them? Now we have to argue, and I have to argue for the Swedish way, and she will argue for the Filipino way. Actually, she didn't argue. She said, you know what? Swedish way sounds wonderful. Let's try the Swedish way. But in the Philippines, they have respect for the elders. In Sweden, we do not have respect for the elders. And I said, you know what? I really like this. Let's do that. Let's do the Filipino way. And now we are arguing everything, putting arguments in for why we should do it this or that way. And we are taking the best of the Swedish and the best of the Filipino. But more importantly, we both know that the way we thought we were supposed to raise kids is not the only way. Now, there are other ways of raising a kid. And that only happened after I got into that multicultural marriage. But again, in India, you get this from the very time you are born. It's like people are multilingual, right? They're
Yeah.
multicultural, multi-perceptional. Like you have multiple perceptions of the world from the start, which means you always know there's not one way of doing it. And you also know there's multiple ways of doing it, and by logic follows there might be an even better way of doing it. Let's find out. That curiosity that comes from that.
I think Indians are not rigid in the way they think, which kind of helps them expand their creativity. So, for example, like Indian clothing, there's a sari. If I were to subdivide the kinds of saris that are there in India, I could go on and on because people just went wild with their creativity and created these different kinds of saris. And they were very flexible in the way they thought. And there was no rules or, that this needs to be done a certain way. And I do agree that this is how we've been brought up since day one, that we're given that freedom to think that there's more than one way. And it's so refreshing to see that you came here and you noticed that.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Is also the fact that you're so traditional with,
Mhm.
and at the same time so open to new ideas. Normally it's one or the other. You're either traditional or you're open for new ideas. But in India, you are both extremely traditional and very open to ideas. Which again, because tradition is not a bad thing. Knowing your culture, knowing where you come from, knowing why you do things the way you do things, and at the same time being open to trying new ideas. It's not unique to India, but India is an extreme when it comes to that. I can't think of another country that at the same time is so traditional and so open to new ideas.
I totally agree with you, Fredrik. So, Fredrik, before we close today, what's one piece of advice you would give to someone who is very creative but is struggling to sell themselves or market themselves or their product?
Okay, well, in honor of the former minister of Bhutan, my
Mhm.
answer would be go inwards. As in, try to understand what is it with selling that you find so uncomfortable. Is it because you don't really think your product is great? Well, then you should work on making the product better. Is it because you don't like to force people to buy things you don't think they need? Well, then you should look at, is your product actually what people need? Is it because you're not able to sell it? Then maybe you need to study rhetoric. I usually say to people that uh, that don't like to sell their ideas or can't sell their ideas, I say maybe your product or service is not the problem, and maybe you are not the problem. Maybe you are lacking the rhetorical skills to sell the product, because sales, more than anything else, is rhetoric. Rhetoric is the art of getting other people over to your side. So if you are struggling with selling, read books on rhetoric, and you will learn. My favorite example is not actually rhetoric. It's the book Influence by Galliani, Influence, Science and Practice. It's about, you could call it rhetorical techniques on influencing people to give you what you want. And the simple rules, rhetorical tricks are easy. Most people haven't learned to master them. I could give you a rhetorical technique if you want.
Yeah, that would be great, please. For the
Okay,
listeners, it would be
here's
great.
a here's a simple one. It's called position, problem, possibility, proposal. It's the 4 Ps. The biggest problem people do is they jump straight to the solution, what they're offering. No. First, you need to get everyone on the same page, which is position. What is the position we are in? I'll give you a great example. You used to live in America, am I correct?
I still live in America.
You
I'm
still live in
visiting.
America. Yeah, good,
Yes.
perfect. Do you remember Donald Trump the first time he got elected? What was his slogan? It's actually still the same. But what's his
Make
slogan?
America great again.
Correct. What was Hillary Clinton's slogan?
I honestly don't remember it.
No one remembers. Not only you, no one remembers. It was stronger together, but no one remembers. That shows to you that rhetorically it was very weak. Now, this is why the Make America Great is such a good slogan. So first with position. Position. America is a great country, but lately we've been having problems with violence and insecurities. Okay, yeah, okay, that's true. We can agree on that. The problem is that the immigrants are walking in from Mexico and they are rapists and murderers. Now we have defined the problem. Okay? And the position would be something like this. I remember when I was young, I was able to leave my door unlocked. We don't do that anymore. That's a position. Everyone agrees with this. The problem is that we have immigrants, they're walking over the border and they are rapists and murderers. Imagine a world where America was safe again and where you could leave your door unlocked like it used to be that's the possibilities. Proposal, let's build a wall and let Mexico pay for it. The 4 Ps, okay? Simple, make America great again. Position, get everyone on the same page. Problem, state the problem so that people can understand it. Possibilities, paint a beautiful picture if the problem is gone. Proposal, what should we do to get this wonderful world? So easy. It works on any product or serve, anything you want. Try it. Like you can teach it to children and the parents are going to hate you for it.
That's fantastic advice. I'm going to sit down and write this and make some notes after this podcast.
And when you think about it, so a lot of people who haven't been able to sell is because they didn't use a rhetorical technique like that, and then they fail. So it's actually not that hard. But if that technique doesn't work for you, find another rhetorical technique that works for you. In one way or another, you are going to be a great salesperson if you just go inwards and try to understand what kind of salesperson am I that will make authentically. What is my authentic sales personality look like? And if you dig deep enough and you still can't find her, then the answer is find a partner who is.
Well, thank you so much, Fredrik. This has been such an interesting topic to talk about. That we spoke so much about India makes my heart warm, and I'm really looking forward to releasing this podcast. So thank you so much. Where can people reach out to you?
I guess the Creativity Explorer on LinkedIn, I guess, is the easiest answer.
Okay,
or
and
just
when
my
is the
name.
book out?
The book is coming out just before December 2025, globally.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much and hope
Thank
to
you.
connect with you soon.